Okay, welcome everyone. It's going to be a little unusual. I'm not really going to open the commissioners meeting right this minute. Instead, we'll be opening a public hearing with the Whitley County Holding Corp. But before we do that, it's tradition here that we pledge the allegiance to the flag. So if everyone please rise and join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So at this time, I will open the public meeting featuring the Whitley County Holding Corp.
Just a brief introduction, my name is John Wilkever. I'm the current president of the Whitley County Holding Corporation. One of our members from past has been replaced. Tim Rice, who is seated here beside me, is the newest member of the Holding Corporation. The third member of the Holding Corporation is Brian Emmerich, and Brian could not attend today, but we do have a quorum as 2/3 are here. The purpose of the meeting today is to talk just briefly about the possibility of refinancing the public bonds that are on the Whitley County Government Center. And with that, I really would introduce Todd Samuelson from Umbaugh & Associates, who will lead that discussion.
Thanks, John. With the current interest rate environment, there is an opportunity to consider the refinancing of the outstanding bonds. The bonds were issued actually for the renovation construction of this facility here. And the reason that the holding corporation exists, if you will, is due to statutory requirements on how much debt can be issued directly by a county, which at the time exceeded the county's direct bonding capacity. So the bonds were issued through the holding corporation, which actually owns the facility, and then the county leases this space from the holding corporation. Those lease rentals that the county makes to the holding corporation goes directly in their pockets, and no, I'm kidding. That was a CPA joke. That revenue stream is utilized by the holding corporation then through a trustee to service the bonds or make principal and interest payments on the bonds. I do have a little handout here that will hopefully facilitate our discussion on the refinancing. Some of you have seen this before as we presented this concept to the commissioners and the council. It's in a little different format, and I'll explain that here in a second. Anybody else? Sure. I'm going to give mine away here in a second. Well, I'll give you one here. I can wait. What I've handed around is actually, and I'm not supposing anything. If the county or the holding corporation does not want to move forward with the refinancing, it obviously would come to a screeching halt. But with the discussions with the commissioners and the council previously, there was an interest in moving forward to further that process. On Friday, we did send out information to prospective buyers. You know, it's great that we have ideas on what this might look like, but until somebody actually buys the bonds or offers interest rates on what a new bond issue might look like, then we really don't know what those savings could be. So we sent this information out to, I believe, 12 different underwriters, banks, on Friday to have them look at it, give proposals on how they would look at this particular transaction. So I just thought I'd bring this as along because it does summarize the transaction as we presented it to those potential purchasers. But I'm going to draw your attention to the attachments and actually start with the last page. So I always ask myself, why do I put it in this order if I'm going to go from the back to the front? But this, on the last page, this is a schedule which reflects the remaining payments on the 2004 bonds. And as you can see, the principal outstanding is just over $4.9 million remaining to be paid. In the far right-hand column, those are the lease rental payments that the county is making to the holding corporation, which I described before. And those payments are utilized by the holding corporation to make the principal and interest payments that are reflected here on the schedule or will be made absent any refinancing. When you look at the interest rate column, the interest rates range from 3.9 to 4.8%. Those are all fixed interest rates, but they do change somewhat by maturity. The longer they're outstanding, the higher the interest rate. We can do better than those rates in today's market. So the essence of the transaction, it's very similar to refinancing your home, where you would take a new mortgage on your home and pay off the old, using the interest rate differential to affect or generate a savings. Not quite that simple or straightforward in the government sector, but in essence, that's the transaction. On the previous, or excuse me, on the, if you go back 2 pages from the back, this is an estimate, or our estimate, of what a new bond issue might look like to, in essence, pay off the old bond issue. And you can see the assumed interest rate scale goes from 0.85% out to 3.8%, which is obviously lower than what the county or the holding corporation is currently paying. Probably a better schedule is to look at the one in between, where we provide an estimate or a comparison of the estimated debt service on the bonds that would be issued, or the proposed refunding bonds, as compared to what would be paid on the 04 bonds, or the bonds to be refunded. And in total, we're estimating a savings of, or a net savings of roughly $187,000 in the lower right-hand corner. On a present value basis, just under $160,000 per year. Again, this is not going to solve or create tons of money for the county on an annual basis, but $15,000 to $20,000 per year certainly could be utilized for something else other than paying interest to bondholders. So that is a quick summary. Let me go to one more page. I mentioned the refunding bonds, or I didn't mention, but we're estimating the par amount of those bonds to be $5,330,000. And the savings that I mentioned are after all expenses associated with refinancing, which is summarized on the source and use schedule just 4 pages in from the back. The use of funds that would come from the bond issue, the majority of those obviously would go to, we're calling that a deposit to escrow. In essence, what happens is the proceeds of the refunding bond, as they come into the holding corporation via the escrow or the trustee bank, most of those proceeds are going to go into an escrow account, and that they'll be invested for a short period of time, and then we'll call the bonds in on the call date and pay the principal and interest that's due to the existing bondholders. An underwriter's discount, that's an allowance for an underwriter who would purchase the bonds. In my analogy to refinancing your home, this is similar to points on a mortgage, or the fee, if you will, to the underwriters. We do have an allowance also for issuance costs and contingencies. This is a little bit higher than what it will actually be, but it's an allowance. And that covers services from our firm, county attorney, bond counsel, trustee bank, rating agency, notices, all inclusive of the expenses associated with this type of transaction. There are a few funds with the trustee bank, $24,500 roughly, that will be applied to the refunding. The balance then would come from the new bond issue of $5,330,000. So again, the net savings that we're estimating are after expenses. It does not require or touch any other funds of the county. So it's an effort to take advantage of the current interest rate environment and affect the savings for the county. I don't want to go too fast or too slow, but that's a quick summary of the refunding. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
And you need from us a motion to proceed, is that correct, Todd? And for you to get things going?
Well, I always try not to play attorney, but there are some,
Understand.
I don't know if you want to take over at this point, but there is a resolution of the holding corporation that's been prepared by Ice Miller. I don't know if that's been provided or not.
No, I've had an opportunity to review the resolution, and it meets the legal requirements necessary for the transaction. this is sort of a mirror image of that EDC thing we just had you sign. It's the same, it's a different type of transaction, but the result is the same. It's basically just to refinance. And so, so we have all the documents here for you to sign, and commissioners, they look to me to be in order, so. Okay, so you guys are gonna have to, you will vote to approve this, and then in your meeting, then you can adopt the resolution. And John, do we normally do that, the same day? Is that?
Normally it has.
Okay. That's the only thing I wasn't sure of, but,
So it's not Whitley Holding Corp's resolution or ordinance, it's a Whitley County ordinance?
There's one for each.
there's one each, yeah. The holding corporation has, they do the resolution, and it's just like when the Economic Development Commission does a resolution, and then the county council does it. You each do it, so.
We have to do one.
All right.
If you already had copies, I apologize, but I did bring copy. There's a resolution for the holding corp, which was the first document that I handed around for everybody. In front of that, they provided a waiver of notice of meeting and some sample minutes you can use or not use, Jen. But the resolution itself is the last 2 pages for the holding corporation. In essence, what that resolution does is authorize the transaction. There's still work to be done. I think to put it in layman's terms, it says you're interested, you want to move forward with the transaction. You'll want to work with Ice Miller as bond counsel, Umbaugh as financial advisor, Sigler Law as counsel for the corporation, and Wells Fargo as trustee. It does not appoint an underwriter. That's going to be going through the RFP process, which I touched on. The other component of the resolution that I think is worthy to note, as soon as I find it, actually it's in the whereas, or no, the first resolve, third paragraph in, that we're not going to do a transaction just to do a transaction. There's a minimum savings threshold of $125,000. We cannot control the interest rate market. It changes probably since I left the office. But that is a minimum savings. We certainly expect to do better than that. But should interest rates move, that's there so that the holding corporation and the county has comfort that we're going to get some bang for this, and that's after expenses. We don't expect to be there, but again, we don't control the interest rate environment. So that's, I think, the most important components of the resolution.
Will, does Ice Miller, because I haven't spoken to Lisa about this, do they want to, I mean, these minutes and things, do they want us to fill them out by just interlineating who's in attendance and the date and everything? Or are they going to prepare a final minute that has all that in it?
I think if you just mock it up and send it to them, then they'll go ahead and draft it.
Okay, you and I can mock
It can be done that way, or if you want to, I don't know if you got it in Word format, if you want to do it yourself, that's fine as well.
You don't mean me, myself.
What's that?
Word format, me, myself, that's not going to work.
You and I are on the same page.
But somebody else will do it. Yeah, okay, I think we get that figured out. We'll just do it here. And if they want something different than that, if Lisa does, she can let us know.
You said a minimum savings of $125,000. Say by one reason or another, it doesn't get there, then this just all, right?
What would happen, it doesn't happen very often, but we have had this happen, that the interest rate market moves. It'll just basically, instead of not being done, it'll go on the shelf until the interest rate environment improves. So there is no deadline, if you will, unless you want to say, well, we're just not interested. I mean, the market moves, and if it just is a timing issue, then we'll wait. If it is a overall market movement and it goes away for years, and it just won't be done.
And you're still locked in your current rate.
Right.
It's an upside on whichever.
And maybe a question ought to be asked is how will the savings be reflected for the county? Will it be reflected in the rent, or will there just be additional monies accumulated
It's
based?
just additional monies that will accumulate because your bond payments are gonna be less. You're gonna be collecting essentially the same amount of dollars that you have, you just expenditures, the interest primarily
Well,
is gonna
actually,
be
the
less.
lease rental will go down.
Lease rents go down, but that's a savings to the county because they're
And
saving
the
those
overall
dollars.
effect to the county will be, this is generated through your debt service fund, the levy that's necessary to pay the holding corporation. So as that goes down, all else being equal, the tax rate necessary to generate that levy will go down. So the effect on constituents is a lower tax rate.
So the rent will go down?
Correct.
Is there a lease document, is a lease document already constructed in a way
Yeah.
that'll automatically reflect that?
There'll be an amendment to the lease reflecting the new payment schedule. There'll be a supplemental trust indenture summarizing the transaction. Yeah, there's a lot more paperwork to come. This is
Right.
just the preliminary resolution saying we're interested to
Yeah.
move forward.
I just wanted it out there for the public hearing.
And typically an amortization schedule will follow that, simplistically, that's what it is, bond payment schedule amortization.
Can't
schedule.
really have that until the bonds are sold.
Right,
what
because
the
you don't know
interest
what the
is.
final interest rate is, that's correct.
Yeah.
It would not affect in any way, and John, you probably can answer this because you're involved in that. This will not affect in any way of like the EDC renting part of this building. They're not going to
No.
see their
No.
rent go down, right?
No, that's between you and them.
But they're
And
part
that's-
of the building, which will.
Right, but no, you can charge whatever you wish to the EDC from that standpoint for the rent.
Okay.
Todd, since that's gonna change the tax rates, when does that, and the tax rates have already been issued, when does that affect the tax rates? Would that be for 2014 then?
13, pay 14, wouldn't it?
Well, assuming we can get the transaction done in the next few weeks or about 6 weeks, the new schedule then will be, you can't change the rate this year. So you're gonna generate a tax levy that's a little bit higher than what you need, because we can do it two ways. We can take a savings this year, and typically when that happens, then you have what's called a surplus in your debt service fund, because under this estimate, you wouldn't need roughly 18,000 that previously you thought you needed. So that could be moved to a rainy day fund or be held in your budget for next year's payment, something like that. Or we can just go ahead and match this year's payment since it's already been budgeted, it's gonna be levied. And that'll create a little higher savings in the future years. So either way, but it'll be reflected in this year's budget so that next year, your levy of taxes to pay this lease will go down. We can't change this year levy. You're one of the counties that's currently on time. If we were in another county, we just
Who actually makes the payments? Does the county actually make the payments, or do we give those guys the money?
No, you actually,
Okay.
we don't.
The flow of funds, actually, the money goes to the trustees.
It's just,
Right.
it's coming out of the debt service?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And it goes to Wells Fargo, who's currently the
Yeah,
Trustee.
okay.
trustee.
And then ultimately, these guys don't see money, they use that money to pay bondholders.
And our role with this after today is very limited unless at some point down the road you needed to do something else.
Which I'll let you consider the resolution, but that brings up a question that I have for you all as well, based on one response from an underwriter, so.
Okay, so you guys need to act on the resolution.
If you want to make that.
Sure. I motion to approve it.
It's a motion from Tim Rice to approve the resolution of the Whitley County Holding Corporation for the refinancing of the June 2004 issuance of the bonds on the government center with a minimum savings of $125,000. I'll second.